Alright, we're going to start this tutorial of Macbeth Act 1 by taking a look at a PowerPoint, which I actually got from teacherweb.com and adapted for our needs for this particular tutorial. A lot of interesting things happen in Act 1, and Act 1 sets the stage for everything that goes on with Macbeth. Sorry. And so we are basically taking a look today at some of the motifs and the themes for Macbeth. Fair and foul, the whole idea of foul meaning reference to bad weather, but it also can mean something that is rotten or that is ugly or is somehow wrong. And so to the weird sisters, who are the witches, what is ugly is beautiful, and what is beautiful is ugly. It's a perversion of beauty, really. Throughout the play, we see that there are lots of people who appear to be beautiful or noble on the outside, but in reality are hiding some pretty dark secrets. The idea of equivocation is a theme. The idea to equivocate is to lie by saying something that sounds fair, but which has a hidden foul meaning, or by saying something that on the surface looks one way but really is rotten on the inside. And so the idea is that in here, deceit is a big issue, is a big theme. Nothing is really what it seems, and no one is really who they seem. Nature versus the unnatural, the idea that in Macbeth the word nature usually is referring to human nature, and the whole play is about how Macbeth goes from being a natural man to behaving in an unnatural way. Here's some other motifs. A motif is simply images that continue to appear that contribute to the theme. For example, if you were to have a kitchen that was a farm theme, you might have lots of little cow figurines, or you might have red and white checked curtains, or you may have old farm signs or that kind of thing. If it was a beach theme, you may have seashells or pictures of the beach, or fish netting, anything those are all motifs. So what we see in Macbeth, the motifs might include blood. You're going to see a lot of blood. The word hands is going to be mentioned a lot, usually referencing blood on the hands. The ideas of sight, light, darkness, blindness, all of those are part of the whole idea of a motif. Babies, children, manhood, sleep, birds, kingship, heaven and hell, all these are motifs. We'll be discussing motif a little bit more specifically when we get to Act 4. Now, Macbeth is a tragic hero, and most of you know, if you read the Oedipus play, you know what a tragic hero is. But let's refresh our memories. A tragic hero has a tragic flaw, and that term for that is hamartia, which is a tragic flaw in error or judgment. This tragic flaw usually in a tragic hero is going to be hubris, which is excessive pride. It's the kind of thing that you see with rock stars or big name celebrities who become so prideful that they basically run their life off into a ditch somewhere. Either they start using and abusing drugs and alcohol, which would be their error in judgment, and they destroy themselves. We've seen this in lots of young actors. We saw this with even many years ago, people like Elvis Presley, Whitney Houston. We've seen that, Michael Jackson, people who had really had it all, or so it seemed, and made some really bad errors in judgment. Macbeth begins to violate the laws of his own nature. Anytime you go against who you really are, there is a price that's going to have to be paid. And it is only with his death that that order which he destroyed can be restored. There's no other way. He perverts the world that he lives in such a way that his death is the only thing that can make it right again. Now, let's take a look at Act 1, Scene 1. And I'm just going to escape out of here for just a second. And we're going to take a look at the play. And this is basically Act 1, Scene 1. And we see that the witches are here, and they're talking among themselves. And we see here the fair is foul, foul is fair, hover through the fog and filthy air. This is the very first introduction. And we also see the name Macbeth right here, which tells us that they are making some plans with Macbeth. Now, I don't know about you, but if three witches were somewhere scheming and plotting to try to have a meeting with me, I would be really concerned. And obviously that's not a good thing. So let's go back and take a look at some commentary on that. So the purpose of this particular, should be this scene, is to establish the theme of hideousness and disorder with these witches, because they are hideous and they are disorderly. You've got these three hags that are ugly, poor, diseased. They're making all kinds of mischief in the thunderstorm, and this is how people saw witches at this time. They would never have believed, you know, a witch like Harry Potter, well, excuse me, you Harry Potter fans, so he's a wizard, I know. Or Sabrina, the teenage witch, a beautiful witch, Charmed, for example. That's not how people saw witches in this time period. They were always ugly, poor, diseased. They were always full of evil. So they would have believed this scene. So the witches bring ugliness together, and they unite it with evil and power, and all of that creates disorder, and they're looking for Macbeth. Not a good combo. So if we go back to the play, we've got the scene 2 right here. We've got Duncan, who is actually the King of Scotland, as you see right here. Malcolm and Donalbain, those are his two sons. Lennox is one of the king's men, and they're holding up this bleeding sergeant. And he basically tells the story, which is kind of what happens in many of Shakespeare's plays. And in plays in general, you have what's called the exposition, where you get all the background. So he's saying, you know, doubtful it stood as two spent swimmers that do cling together and choke their art. The merciless MacDonwald, worthy to be a rebel, for to that the multiplying villainies of nature do swarm upon him. From the western isles of kerns and gallow glasses is supplied. We're talking about MacDonwald. Now, that sounds like a Scottish name. And yet, he's fighting on the side of the enemy, which tells us that MacDonwald, then, is a traitor. And he's going to be someone who's going to have to be killed. Brave Macbeth, look how he is described even before we meet him. Well, he deserves that name. Disdaining fortune, with his brandished steel, smote with bloody execution. Like valor's minion, carved out a passage till he faced the slave being MacDonwald. That's who we're talking about. Which ne'er shook hands nor bade farewell to him, till he unseamed him from the nave to the chaps, and fixed his head upon our battlement. What that means is that he basically gutted MacDonwald from the navel to the chaps, or the jaw, cut his head off and put it on the battlements of the castle as a warning. So Macbeth was not a shy warrior. He was brave and hardy, and he fought bravely in battle. And of course, Duncan says, "O valiant cousin." Now, the idea of the cousin doesn't necessarily mean that they were relatives, but in this case, if you remember from your family tree of the Scottish kings, he was indeed Macbeth's cousin. So right here we have a pretty good attitude towards Macbeth. He seems to be brave. He seems to be a hardy soldier, noble, courageous. Here we get the Norwegian lord, so we know that they are fighting against Norway. Norway is has attacked Scotland with the help of a couple of Scottish nobles. And this scene here just basically discusses how Macbeth and Banquo, who was his right-hand man, so to speak, came together and began to work on doubling their efforts to win the battle. Ross comes in right here and has some interesting news. And the news has to do with the Thane of Cawdor. Now, the word Thane in the Scottish nobility was what the English might have called a lord. And so Cawdor was one of these traitors who had basically betrayed betrayed Scotland, betrayed Duncan. And we find out here that he is called a traitor right here. And Bellana's bridegroom refers to Macbeth, Bellana being the goddess of war. Basically confronted him and fought him, and to conclude, Ross says the victory fell on us, meaning that Scotland has won this battle, and the number one hero of the battle was none other than Macbeth himself. Now, this is an interesting little twist right here. Duncan says, "No more that Thane of Cawdor shall deceive our bosom interest. Go and pronounce his present death," that meaning that he's going to be executed, "and with his former title greet Macbeth." So what that tells us is that Macbeth is actually going to become the new Thane of Cawdor, but he does not know that. So let's go back and take a look at this commentary and just talk a little bit more about it. So we know that it's got this wounded soldier who's reporting to Duncan the information. He relates Macbeth's deeds on the battlefield, and before we even meet Macbeth, Shakespeare shows us that he is very valiant and loyal, that he doesn't have any regard for his own life, but he fought and killed one of the rebels and captured the second one. And so we see Macbeth here as being a good guy, and he is restoring order to the Scottish kingdom after all of this traitorous disorder. Now, we see that the scene ends here by ordering the rebellious Thane of Cawdor to be executed, and his title is going to be given to Macbeth. Now, here we have a situation that's known as dramatic irony. It's when the audience knows something that the main characters do not. So Macbeth does not know that he has been given this title, and that's going to come into play in just a few minutes. So we have this war scene, and obviously the key idea here is heroism. We see Duncan and his soldiers. They're virtuous and they are seeking order. Macbeth has won victories, and through his victories good order is restored. Now the witches would like nothing better than to destroy this wonderful victorious time, this fair time. Macbeth is rewarded for his services, and of course Duncan sends Ross to give him the news. He is made the center of both the witches and Duncan's desires. Now let's take a look at the next scene in the book. So in scene 3, the first witch and the second witch are together, and they're basically discussing the things that witches talk about. Apparently, one of them got upset with a sailor's wife because the sailor's wife would not give her chestnuts, and she puts a hex on her, curse on her, and basically curses her husband, which is exactly what you would expect a witch to do. They're just basically getting together and talking about all the mischief that they've been involved in, and then Macbeth enters. And here's one of the spells that we talked about whether or not this was a real incantation or not. The weird sisters, hand in hand, posters of the sea and land, thus do go about to bout, thrice to thine and thrice to mine, and thrice again to make up 9. Peace, the charms wound up. And of course Macbeth and Banquo enter. And we see Macbeth here say, "So foul and fair a day I have not seen." So he references back to what the witches said, although he didn't hear them, he says basically the same thing. And in this situation, obviously it's a fair day because they've won the battle, but it's also a foul day because so many lives were lost in the process. They see these witches, and Banquo says, hey, what are you guys doing, basically? You look like you should be women, but you've got beards. So apparently they were really, really ugly. So I want you to take a look at this. The witches go to Macbeth, or they greet him. One calls him Thane of Glamis, which is what he is currently. He is currently the Thane, or the Lord of Glamis. And the second witch hails him as the Thane of Cawdor. And we know, although he doesn't yet, we know that he has been indeed given this title. And then look at what the third witch does. She hails him as the king. So we have this idea of the present here with the Thane of Glamis. The Thane of Cawdor represent, the past, he was the Thane of Glamis. Now he's the Thane of Cawdor. And so this would be a future prophecy. Now take a look at what Banquo says. Wow, to me you speak not. Is there any, what am I, chopped liver? There's nothing, you're not saying anything about me. Am I not gonna have anything great happen to me? And so the first witch says, hail, 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 lesser than Macbeth and greater, not so happy yet much happier. Now look at this part. Thou shalt get kings, though thou be none. So in other words, Banquo is going to be the father of kings, but he will never be a king. Now look at what Macbeth says to the witches. He calls them imperfect speakers because they don't give him enough information. He's very confused about this whole thing because he believes right now that the Thane of Cawdor is still alive. And remember, he does not know that he has been named. But they vanish. And then he and Banquo just kind of trade off, kind of kidding around with each other. Oh, I guess you're going to be king. Yeah, your kids are going to be king. Ah, ha, 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 ha. It would be kind of like going to a fair or something and maybe going to a fortune teller. And the fortune teller telling you that, oh, you're going to have great struggles tomorrow, and you got a big test. No big deal. Anybody would know that. Or maybe she says, oh, you're going to be graduating this year because she sees your class t-shirt on. And then she tells you you're going to leave this tent and you're going to find $10 on the ground. And then immediately after that, you're going to be hit by a truck. Well, you would probably laugh it up a little bit until you find out that when you walk outside, there's $10 on the ground. So Ross shows up to give him the news that he has indeed been named Thane of Cawdor. And Banquo says to himself, what? Can the devil speak true? He realizes that these witches have done something. And so Angus explains to him how the Thane of Cawdor is going to be executed and how he's been given this title. And look at what Macbeth says. And this is an aside. This is meant specifically to show the audience what's going on in Macbeth's mind. Nobody else on the stage is supposed to hear this. But he says, Glamis and Thane of Cawdor, the greatest is behind. For the first time, he catches a glimpse of what could be his future. He's seen the dollar on the ground. He knows what's next. And he assumes that because one prophecy has come true, that they'll all come true. But Banquo, in an aside to Macbeth, says to him, "'Tis strange, and oftentimes to win us to our harms, the instruments of darkness tell us truths, win us with honest trifles, in deepest consequence." In other words, just because these witches have told him something that is true does not mean that it is good. Because evil people sometimes will give you a little bit of the truth in order to get you to cause your own destruction. It's kind of like, you know, giving somebody enough rope to hang themselves, so to speak.